Well, welcome. We're going to begin a two-part presentation on eclipses, specifically the eclipse of 2017 and the eclipse of 2024, which hasn't yet happened yet, but will in the near future. So we're going to do a share screen and get into that. So the eclipses of 2017 and 2024, part one. Question: was the Father and the Son simply responding to the heartfelt prayer of a young boy? Or was Joseph keeping an appointment he had made long ago with the Father and the Son? So either one or the other. Or actually, I think both. The reason for this question was, see this little icon right here represents a calendar. I personally feel that Joseph was keeping an appointment. He didn't know he was keeping an appointment. The Lord had to prepare him over the years to get ready for this appointment. But I honestly feel he had an appointment. The reason I'm saying that is because I feel that the Lord has a calendar. His time is not our time, but the calendar that he is keeping is a calendar for this earth, for us. For example, the first vision, I have a feeling that was on the Lord's calendar. He knew that particular event was going to usher in the dispensation of the fullness of times. So he's not going to wait on a young boy. That date is set. He has to get the young boy ready for that appointment. While at the same time, the young boy, Joseph in this case, felt like he was prompted to go someplace where he could pray out loud. And so just everything about this tells me I'm looking at it through another lens now. And the lens is that this was an appointed time. In the beginning, when this earth was being created, once the orbit of the earth around the sun, the orbit of the moon around the earth, and the rotation and the tilt of the earth on its axis was fixed in place, then the date, time, and hour of every eclipse was set in stone. The reason I know that is because NASA, through their mega computers, using these variables that I just talked about, these elements are not arbitrary. They are fixed. They're exact. Knowing that, they were able to actually plot every eclipse that has ever happened and every eclipse that will happen because of that right there. Because they were able to use these pieces of the equation. That's why the whole world knew about the eclipse in 2017. They knew the path, they knew exactly when it was going to start, where it was going to end, and they knew all the parameters of that eclipse. And they know the next one and the next one after that. It's because it's all been plugged into the computer using these variables, and these variables are exact. It also tells me that an eclipse is kind of geared, if the Lord is using signs in the heavens, an eclipse is one of those things for the dispensation of the fullness of times. It's because it seems so arbitrary. I mean, you've got an eclipse, and then you may not get an eclipse in that exact location for 1,200, 1,800 years. So how are you going to use it as a marker that you can say, okay, because many people have never even seen eclipse. They don't even have a comprehension. Just like me, I really didn't have a good comprehension of what an eclipse was. LeGrand Richards, basically in conference, said this: I have never seen this in print, but I heard President Charles A. Callis make this statement, that after the Book of Mormon came forth, the prophet Joseph was terribly worried about what the world would say. And he said, "Oh Lord, what will the world say?" And the answer came back, "Fear not. I will cause the earth to testify of the truth of these things." And from that day until now, and only the Lord knows what is yet ahead, external evidences have been brought forth of the divinity of that book. This is Conference Report 1953. So just like the Lord is going to bring forth evidences to prove the veracity of the Book of Mormon, here you've got Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail. They were hungry, they were abused, cold, miserable conditions. And in the midst of these miserable conditions, he received some of the most sublime revelations that had ever been given. This is one verse out of that powerful revelation that he was receiving. It's in section 121, verse 31. The Lord is saying, all the times of their revolutions, all the appointed days, months, and years, and all of the days of their days, months, and years, and all of their glories, laws, and set times shall be revealed. When? In the millennium? No. In the days of the dispensation of the fullness of times. Joseph didn't even know the date that he had the first vision. He was only a boy of 14. He remembers some things about it, but he didn't know the exact time. The Lord's telling him that date, that exact date when he had the first vision, was someday going to be revealed. When? In this dispensation that we're living in. And it's going to be probably because of computers and other things that will come to play that will help us determine when these certain things happened. So, and one last thing, and then we'll move on, and that is the prophet Ether the prophet Enoch, in an apocryphal book called the Book of Enoch, talks a great deal about a calendar. And this is the calendar that the Lord gave Enoch. And so you know that the Lord is working with a calendar. The length of this mortal journey is going to be 7 dispensations or 10 periods. Let's now consider the eclipse. We have to look at parameters of this eclipse. An eclipse is something powerful. And we're going to look at connections, because I think that's the way that we can, that the Lord is working with us on an eclipse, is through connections. Looking back and looking ahead. And the fact that these eclipses are given in this day and age, in this time frame, means that he wants us to use this information to look into the near future and prepare ourselves. The width of an eclipse is 71.4 miles wide. It's traveling at an incredible speed, 1,454 miles, twice the speed of sound. And if you were fortunate enough to stand right in the center of that circle, the length of totality will be 2 minutes and 38 seconds. The nation woke up when it came to the 2017, because literally, when you think of it, 99.9%, probably even higher than that, in the United States had never witnessed an eclipse. Even though they're not rare, they happen every year, just about. A little bit more about the anatomy of an eclipse. You can kind of see how it interfaces with the sun. So you've got this large shadow, and most everyone has witnessed that. In fact, most everyone in the United States, because it basically, the shadow covered the entire North American continent. But the little pinprick in the middle is the point of no totality. These are two animations that were put out by NASA. So this is the first one, 2017. You can kind of see the path and you can see the big shadow. It'll just keep looping. So you see the shadow going across North America, but the little speck, the little dot, that's totality. Okay, we'll see that one more time, and then we'll move on to the next eclipse, and you can kind of see its path. Comes down from the northwest, crosses across the entire continental United States, and leaves in South Carolina. So here's the next one, the 2024. It comes up through Mexico. See that again? It comes up through Mexico, crosses through the heartland of America, and goes up through Canada. So those are the two eclipses that we're going to be discussing and connections. Okay, have to go ahead that way. Some facts about the 2000. We're going to talk about it first. Okay, the 2017 eclipse was the first one visible from any of the 48 contiguous states in 38 years, essentially. Not a big fact, but you know, it's been a long time. So most of us have never really seen it. And that means some part, even a sliver of the contiguous United States. It's the first eclipse to cross the nation from sea to shining sea since 1918. That's 99 years. Okay, and here's the two eclipses. The one in 2019 or 1919 and the one in 2017. Moving on. It's the first total eclipse visible only from the modern mainland United States since 1257 AD. In other words, an eclipse that only involves America. That's been 760 years. This is a biggie, a really big one. This connection states that at 9:05 a.m., the eclipse started on the mainland and reaching Salem, Oregon. At that exact moment, on the other side of the world, in Jerusalem, the sun was going down. So you've got these two Salem cities, Salem in the United States and Salem in Israel, called Jerusalem. The two Salems both went into darkness at the same time. Okay. Now, there were 7 Salem cities that went into darkness. Salem, Oregon was the first. It went through Salem. In this map, it says North Dakota. It's Idaho. Salem, Idaho, which Salem, Idaho is just above Rexburg. Sugar Salem is what it's called now. Salem, all the way through 7 cities called Salem. The 7 Salems, 7, remember, is a very important divine number representing perfection. And it kind of comes in conjunction. You normally see it with 10, 7 and 10. But over in, so you got the king of righteousness, who was Melchizedek. He was the king over the city of Salem, later called Jerusalem. And here's another connection. You've got the 2 promised lands kind of on display during this eclipse. In America, before the lands were all split up, you've got a prophet by the name of Enoch going on a mission. This is in Moses 6:41. And the people say, so where are you from? He says, I come from the land of Canaan, a land of righteousness. Well, obviously, he's not that far probably from the Garden of Eden, because this is the area where he was working. And he presided over a great city called the city of Enoch. And that city sought righteousness, and it was taken to heaven. We've heard of the city of Enoch going to heaven. 1,000 years or so later, over in a place called Canaan, only this is after the lands split up, on the other side of the earth, in a land we call Israel today, there was a great prophet by the name of Melchizedek presiding over a wicked people in a city called Salem. And they became righteous, and the Lord took them to heaven also. And in the Joseph Smith translation of Genesis 14, it says they were taken to heaven and joined with the city of Enoch. So you've got the two Salems on display right there. Now, here's my personal journey. I had no clue of the importance of an eclipse. I was visiting with my daughter up in Idaho on business. I was staying with them overnight. And we got talking about the upcoming eclipse, which would happen in about 3 weeks. And my wife was excited about it, but I didn't get excited because I couldn't understand why it was so important. We traveled to Boise. You can kind of see Boise right here. It's outside of Totality. And my daughter had planned for us to witness the eclipse in Weiser. So we got in the car that morning, and there were supposed to be crowds everywhere. And I thought, well, you know, if we just pull off and some field, we'll be okay. We'll get close enough. But if we don't get there, it'll be okay. Oh, was I totally ignorant of the concept of a total eclipse. When we got back, my daughter's husband had to work, and to him, the eclipse wasn't a big deal. He saw the shadow, but he didn't see totality. When I witnessed totality, there was quite a crowd there. As I looked around at the people around me, there were people dancing. There were people crying. It was such an emotional experience. And I myself, I didn't even quite understand how to control my feelings. It was an emotional event. So it's no wonder that our two brand new general authorities, Elder Gary E. Stevenson and Elder Ronald A. Rasband, both brand new apostles, spoke about the eclipse in General Conference. So let's start with Gary E. Stevenson, and we're just going to pull a clip from his address.
Heavenly event occurring on the same day and captivating millions worldwide was a total solar eclipse. This was the first time such an eclipse had marched across the entire United States in 99 years. Have you ever seen a solar eclipse? A total solar eclipse occurs when the moon moves between the earth and the sun, almost completely blocking any light from the sun. This is a marvel to me. If you imagine the sun as the size of a common bicycle tire, the moon in comparison would be scarcely the size of a small pebble. How is it possible that the very source of our warmth, light, and life could be so greatly obstructed by something comparatively insignificant in size? Although the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, it is also 400 times farther away from the earth. From Earth's perspective, this geometry makes the sun and moon appear to be the same size. When the two are aligned just right, the moon seems to obscure the entire sun. Friends and family of mine who were in the zone of total eclipse described how light was replaced by darkness, the stars appeared, and birds quit singing. The air became chilly, as temperatures in an eclipse can decrease by more than 20 degrees Fahrenheit. They described a sense of awe, astonishment, and even anxiety, knowing an eclipse brings certain hazards. However, they all exercise care to prevent permanent eye damage or spiritual eclipse during the eclipse event. Safety was made possible because they wore glasses equipped with special filtered lenses that protected their eyes from any potential harm. In the same manner that the very small moon can block the magnificent sun, extinguishing its light and warmth, a spiritual eclipse can occur when we allow minor and troublesome obstructions, To get so close, they block out the magnitude, brightness, and warmth of the light of Jesus Christ and his gospel. Elder Neil A. Maxwell took this analogy even further when he stated, even something as small as a man's thumb, when held very near the eye, can blind him to the very large sun. Yet the sun is still there. Brightness is brought upon man by himself when we draw other things too close, placing them first.
Okay, that was awesome. I'm very much enjoyed his presentation. Let's look at some of the locations that this 2017 eclipse was going to go through. Once again, we're looking for connections. In Missouri, you've got several important sites, and it basically cuts right through and encompasses those important sites, making a connection in time, going back in time. So here you've got Adam on Diamond and the New Jerusalem. Is it simply a coincidence that both Adam on Diamond and the future New Jerusalem could fall just barely within this path of totality? Well, it's a possible coincidence, but let's study it a little more. Let's spend some moments with Adam on Diamond. And we'll invite Marky Peterson to talk to us.
On a warm summer day, I visited the land of Adam on Diamond in the state of Missouri. I had looked forward to this visit with keen anticipation, for I had never been there before. The place was beautiful. The fields were green, the hills were rolling. The entire landscape was something to remember. But more impressive than the landscape was the significance of the place. For here Adam lived, and Eve, and their family. The stupendous importance of it all weighed heavily upon me. Here is where the human race began. This we are told by Revelation.
Here's where the human race began. So let's drill down a little bit more. We have the Garden of Eden, Jackson County, Missouri. It's the same location as the future city of New Jerusalem. On the other hand, we know that when Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, they traveled 70 miles northeast to a location which Adam called Adam on Diamond. Here, Adam would live out his 930 years. At the same location, Adam, 3 years before his death, gave a final blessing to his posterity. Now, Adam is also the location for a future Latter-day Conference involving both the Savior and Adam. So, questions. Are we talking about something that has divine design behind it? Or is it just a coincidence? Remember that eclipse totality width is 71.4 miles, okay? Is it simply a coincidence that Adam settled 70 miles northeast of the garden? What if he decided, you know what, it's a little greener 73 miles away? Why did he decide to settle at that exact location? If he had settled just outside of it, then the path of totality would not have cut through Adam on Diamond. There would be no reason to even talk about that. This slide would not even be important. So why was Adam prompted to settle at that exact location? And this is what's cool. The path of the eclipse stunningly captures both the beginning of mortality and the ending of mortality, as you'll see with this next little ditty. These labels right here, they send cold chills up my spine when I see them. The beginning of mortality and the ending of mortality here, the beginning of mortality and the ending of mortality here, and the eclipse just encompasses them both beautifully. So that's some of the connections with the 2017 eclipse. Let's move on to the next eclipse, 2024. You've got ancient sacred sites there. I've got a question mark, but not really. I honestly feel that Cumorah land has ancient significance to it. Kirtland also. And we're going to be talking about the center of our lands in a minute. So I think all three of those have connections anciently. So these eclipses are trying to give us a connection with ancient sacred sites, sites that the Lord has visited. Obviously, the Lord visited Palmyra with the boy Joseph. The Lord visited Kirtland at the dedication of the Kirtland Temple. And some very sacred things happened in the land centered to our lands, which we'll talk about.
Alma left the city due to the wickedness of the people. Soon an angel appeared to Alma and called him to return to the city of Ammonihah and preach again unto the people of the city. Alma did so, speedily entering the city by another way. As he entered the city, he was an hungered, and he said to a man, "Will ye give to an humble servant of God something to eat?" And the man said unto him, "I am a Nephite, and I know that thou art a holy prophet of God. For thou art the man whom an angel said in a vision, thou shalt receive." The man was Amulek. Now, did Alma just happen upon Amulek? No, it was no coincidence that he went into the city by the way that would lead him to this faithful man who would become his missionary companion. Elder Neil A. Maxwell once explained, "None of us ever fully utilizes the people opportunities allocated to us within our circles of friendship. You and I may call these intersectings coincidence. This word is understandable for mortals to use, but coincidence is not an appropriate word to describe the workings of an omniscient God. He does not do things by coincidence, but by divine design."
Divine design. Okay, we're going to zero in next. At the center point, the heart of America. You can see here, this is the intersection point for the two eclipses. The 2017 eclipse coming down from the northwest, the 2024 coming up from the southwest, and intersecting right here in southern Illinois. Right here is the Mississippi River, the Ohio River coming down here, and right down here, just south of a town called Carbondale, where actually the University of Southern Illinois is located, is the intersection of these two eclipses. So are there connections there? Oh, wow. Yes. Amazing connections. So we're going to end part one right here and get ready for part two. Part two is all about the connections found at the center point.